If you're looking for a profound discourse that inspires you to purify your personality by offering practical application, you found yourself in the perfect place. I am Trusha Deodat, and I'd like to wish you a very good evening and extend a warm welcome to yet another life-changing series by the Life Mastery Foundation. I hope everyone's comfortable and fully switched on, because in just a moment, our speaker, the founder of the Life Mastery Foundation, Shri M.K. Angajan, will take your head and heart on a journey centered around the Ramayana. This discourse, like many offered by the foundation, has its foundation in ancient wisdom, yet its teachings remain relevant and probably most needed in modern day life. Ivan Pavlov, amongst others, wrote, "If you want a new idea, read an old book." Technology may advance and things may change constantly, but myself and my husband have come to realize that exposure to Vedantic knowledge holds the key to the creation of a firm foundation in life. So much so that we attend Angajanji's weekly study classes and have made it part of our children's routine as well. They are age 7 and 10, and we have seen how the exposure of this knowledge at a young age has helped shape their thoughts and decisions, especially in their interaction with their friends at school. This is a real example of how ancient wisdom affects today's behavior. My husband and I have also attended the workshops on marriage, parenting, and business, and they have most certainly helped us in creating a shared vision for our future and has opened up conversations for growth. Angajanji, as most of his students address him as, has the ability to go between guru, trusted friend, counselor, and even comedian. His commitment to the development of others and passing down of spiritual knowledge is unparalleled, which is why the foundation is so easy to support. From offering education bursaries to youth workshops and constant discourses that educate, uplift, and empower, the mission of his work is exactly what the world needs. So welcome once again. I have no doubt that you will enjoy your time with us this evening. It's now time for Sri M.K. Angajan to begin day 3 of our Ramayana discourse series.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. As you may have seen before, Ramayana has many paradoxes. We will try and highlight as we go along. One of the paradoxes is Kaikeyi not understanding her husband, King Dasharatha, and misunderstanding a malefactor to be a benefactor. Her maid Manthara. Kaikeyi trusted her domestic helper, maid Manthara, more than her own husband's intention. For many people, one of the big challenges is to understand who is the real benefactor and who's the real malefactor. They misunderstand the benefactor to be a malefactor, and the problem starts there. One of the important words as students of Vedanta or the students of this great culture is the word viveka. Viveka means discrimination, thinking, the ability to make the right choices. When you have viveka, you understand who is your real benefactor and who's your malefactor. Who are the people who really mean well to you, for you, and who are the people who appear to mean well but actually detrimental. For many people, in many families actually, there is this problem. They misunderstand the people who speak the comforting lies and they embrace them, and they discard, they reject those people who speak unpleasant truths. I repeat, the problem is we do not know to choose, to discriminate between those people who speak comforting lies and unpleasant truth. So those benefactors may not speak what is pleasant, but they speak what is truthful, what is beneficial. We don't quote them, we discard them. That is what Kaikeyi has done. Because Manthara poisoned her mind, created that suspicion and doubt, brainwashed her mind to against Rama, the eldest of Dasharatha's son. That is where the problem starts. And this is what happens in many families. You will find this happening between in-laws, between spouse, between friends, and even in the work environment. We don't really know who is our real benefactor. That is why we need viveka, understanding. When we have viveka, we are able to understand who are our benefactor. That is why it is so important for us to study the knowledge of Vedanta. Those people who really add value to our life, they may not speak nice things to you, but they mean well. It's difficult for us to understand. Those people who massage our ego, they praise us rather than satisfy reason, and we embrace them. This is a problem that a lot of people suffer from. And that is where they embrace bad company. Bad company are those who take advantage of us. Selfish people very often encash other people's affection. Selfish people they do not know how to receive affection from other people as it is. They pollute it. They pollute it in many ways. One of the ways is that they tend to monetize. They take advantage of other people's good intention, good motive. If somebody is nice to you, somebody is kind to you, you go to them and you ask benefits. If you want some benefit, personal benefit, our tendency is to go to those people who are kind. Just because they are kind, you take advantage. That is what Kaikeyi did. Dasharatha was very kind. In fact, Dasharatha had a preferential relationship with Kaikeyi among the 3 queens he had. And what did Kaikeyi do? Encashed it. Took advantage of his good intention. The second way what people do is, when somebody is kind to you, when somebody gives you a gift, we find it difficult to accept it because we don't want to be obliged by receiving something from the other people. That is also wrong. You got to realize that when you receive something from somebody, by receiving it, you may be giving them happiness. Isn't it? So just because you're receiving something from somebody, that doesn't mean that you're being selfish. In fact, if you reject it, that is being selfish. Because by accepting it gracefully, wholeheartedly, the other person is happy. A lot of people find it difficult to accept gift or any benefit from the other people who willingly, happily giving, because they don't want to be obliged. That's why you find, especially in India, you find this practice that I'm telling you is that you'll find in the wedding invitations, there is a footnote that gifts only in the form of blessings. Indirectly, they're saying don't bring any gifts. Gifts only in the form of blessings. Why? Because if your son or daughter is getting married and somebody gives you a gift, and you got to remember who gave what, and you got to remember that from next 20, 30 years, we don't want all that. Please don't bring any gift, just come and enjoy the hospitality. If somebody wants to give, to accept that gracefully is nothing wrong. There is other extreme also. There are family who tells the invitees which shop you have to buy gift. That is also another selfishness. Indirectly saying, please bring gift and you buy from this particular brand, that particular shop. When somebody wants to give, accepting wholeheartedly is also a form of giving. The third way people abuse other people's affection is, when somebody is being kind, when somebody is being nice, somebody is being generous, we immediately suspect the other people's intention. Why is he being nice to me? Why is she being nice to me? When you suspect somebody else's intention, it is also because of your selfishness, because you don't realize that somebody can be nice to you, somebody can be kind to you unconditionally. Because we express our kindness to the other people only when we want something from the other people. So therefore, when somebody is being kind to you, when somebody is nice to you, you suspect the person's intention. These are all ways our selfishness and ego works. These are all the ways we pollute our affection, somebody else's kindness and affection towards you. So Kaikeyi abused Dasharatha's affection, Dasharatha's kindness towards her. And then what happened? Problems started not only for her and for the other people. Now, this is what the emotional people do in the world. People who are emotional and egoistic, they do damage not only for themselves, for the world around. Whereas people who are rational, they a benefit to the family, to the society, to the country, as well as to themselves. Now, Rama left Ayodhya. Dasharatha was sorrow-stricken. He was devastated. Now, this aspect of Ramayana, ladies and gentlemen, is something that we need to understand, very crucial for almost everybody who's a family member, who's got children. Because one of our strongest attachments, one of our most powerful attachments that almost every mother or father has is attachment to the child. Sometimes to the whole children or sometimes to the firstborn. For many people, firstborn is special, a special attachment. And that's what happened to Dasharatha. Remember, your strongest attachment will also give you, or can also give you, maximum pain, maximum agitation. It could be anything. Whatever that you are attached to, your strongest obsession, possessiveness, attachment can also give you maximum pain. If you're very attached to money, you will find money giving you maximum anxiety, stress, and pain. If you're attached to your spouse, spouse will give you maximum strain and pain and agitation. If you're attached to the children, the same thing. If you're attached to your image, your reputation, your look, that will give you maximum pain. You got to take your own self-inventory. You got to introspect and find out what is my strongest attachment. Or you take the reverse of it. Observe your pain, observe your stress, observe your agitation, and see what exactly is the cause of your stress, anxiety, and agitation. Invariably, you find it's springing from, your anxiety and stress is springing from one of those strongest attachments, strongest possessiveness. So when Rama left Ayodhya, as I told you yesterday, he took the whole Ayodhya with them, because rest of Ramayana is talking about what's happening in the forest until they return back to Ayodhya. Except a few references here and there. Dasharatha was really, in fact, in today's context, he died of cardiac arrest out of sheer depression. Depression due to two reasons. Number one, guilt and attachment. He was guilty. He felt guilty because he had a preferential relationship with Kaikeyi, and of course, attachment to the child. Introspect. It happens. You know, what Ramayana is depicting is something that will happen to you sooner or later, because our child will leave your house. Maybe by marriage, maybe because of profession or education, whatever it is a reality. So when that happens, what happens to you? When your child leave home, you will feel a huge emptiness, a vacuum. Very difficult to fill that. If you are experiencing that vacuum, it is a form of attachment. And invariably, the child will leave home for the child's betterment. It's the right thing to happen. All right. So you got to, if your child has not left home yet, be prepared. If you're not prepared, when it happens, it'll be very difficult for you to handle it. Because the people in the world are not Mahatma, they're not saint, they have attachment. And one of the attachments, or the strongest, is attachment to your child. That is what Ramayana is depicting through Dasharatha's reaction when Rama left Ayodhya. Your child may not go into exile. Your child may go to a different country, different city, different environment to live, to grow from there. Now we got to learn this lesson from animals, because animals, you find animals live a very natural life. You see the birds. It happens to all the animals, the entire animal kingdom. You find the birds, the eagle, or any bird for that matter. When eagles have the eaglets, they nourish it, they hatch the egg, they nourish it, cherish it, bring food, grow the eaglet. And it grows. And what does the eagle do? Eagle trains the eaglets to fly. And how do they do that? They push the eaglet from the high trees. And as the eaglet is falling down, it's trained itself to flap its wings. And just before it touches the ground, the eagle is following, and it grabs it with its claws and takes it right on top and drops it again. And the eaglet learns to flap its wings, and just before it crashes on the ground, it grabs it again and takes it on top and drops it. The eagle trains the eaglets to fly, and once the eaglet is trained to fly, it just flies. Perhaps the eagle may not meet the eaglet's rest of its life. I'm not saying that should happen. I'm just saying that compared to human being, animal world, that's what happens. We got to learn. We have a tendency to cling on. There are mothers, there are fathers in the society. Even after the son or a daughter gets married, they cling on. They cling on emotionally. They don't let go. They don't give the child the freedom. Invariably, either or the mother or father keep controlling the child's life. They keep controlling the child's relationship. You must, the mother keep telling the daughter that you must do this to the husband. You must control like this. You must control like that. Or father would do that. This is the way you should do the money. You should use the money. Let them go. Cling on. And this is why the relationship breaks. Possessiveness, attachment. Remember, child comes through you, not from you. When you say it is my child, it is one of the biggest lie that you are speaking. You don't realize it. The child comes through you, not from you. But we believe that the child comes from me. And you develop a sense of possessiveness. You are simply a trustee of your child. You're simply a custodian. You look after the child. The child belongs to nature. The child belongs to the universe. The child don't belong to you. You look after, take the best care of it. Not only the child, in the context it happened to be the child, but every possessions. One of the beautiful mental disposition to develop is that attitude of trusteeship. I am simply a trustee of my money. I'm simply a trustee of my possession. I'm simply a trustee of my family, my child. When that understanding gets drilled into your system, you'll be the happiest parent. And the child will be the happiest child. In that spirit of beautiful, harmonious relationship, the child must grow. But today, children often grow in an environment of extreme possessiveness and ownership. And sometimes the children become very rebellious because they have controlling parent. When you're controlling a child, that is also a form of attachment. There are two types of parents. One set of parents are control freak. Anything that the child does, they want to control. Do this, do that. Another set of child suffer from the popularity contest. They're so afraid that if you tell the child to be disciplined, they become, they are afraid that you become unpopular in the eyes of the child. So they don't do any discipline. They let the child do what the child wants. The other extreme. Both are detrimental and both are effects of attachment. Possessiveness. Remember, in life, whatever you are possessed and obsessed, that very same object of being will possess and obsess you. Get that very clear. I repeat, whatever you are possessed and obsessed with, that very same object will possess and obsess you. It will control you. That is what it is. If you are very possessive about your car, the car will control your life. If you are very possessive about your money, money will control you. If you are very obsessed and possessed about your child, the child will control you. If you are possessive about alcohol, alcohol will control you. You make decisions around it. Don't take your possessiveness and attachment lightly. It is a disease. This attachment can cause more damage to your life and relationship than any other physical diseases. But because it is psychological, mental, a lot of people don't pay heed to it. Whatever you are possessed and obsessed with, that very same object will possess you. A man was holding a donkey. Probably he was grazing the donkey. As he was grazing, a man happened to pass by. And the man passerby asked this owner of this donkey, whose donkey is this? And the man said, it's my donkey. Oh, the man said, okay, let me check it. So what did he do? Before the owner of the donkey can react, he went and snapped the rope. And the man said, what are you doing? And obviously, when the man snapped the rope, what happened? The donkey started running. And who was running after? The man was running after the donkey. Now the question is, are you holding the donkey or the donkey is holding you? The man believes that I'm holding the donkey, but in actual fact, by the same logic, the donkey is holding you. Every possessiveness or obsession will obsess you also, will control you. That is, it's attachment, obsession, possessiveness are reciprocal. It will possess you. You got to introspect. If you are attached to cigarette, you believe you are smoking cigarette. In actual fact, the cigarette is smoking you. Much later, when you suffer from lung diseases and the other, you'll realize that it was a cigarette that is actually smoking me rather than I'm smoking the cigarette. Those who are obsessed with alcohol, They believe they are drinking alcohol, but in actual fact, the alcohol is drinking them. That's why, George Bernard Shaw, the poet philosopher, English poet and philosopher, he had an interesting definition about cigarette. In fact, Bernard Shaw had a very interesting perspective about many things in life. All right. Cricket, for example, when he went to watch cricket, and he being a celebrity thinker, a lot of paparazzis were following him. And Bernard Shaw sat and watched cricket. Those days, of course, it was test cricket, 5 days. He sat there and watched cricket for about 4 or 5 hours. And he was glued to it. And eventually he got up and started walking. And the paparazzis followed him to find out what is his feedback, what is his reaction about cricket. And the paparazzis asked him, so what do you think? What's your comment? What's your opinion? He said, I've not decided. I've not decided. That's all he said. And most of the journalists went away. One bright spark followed him right by his car and asked him, sir, what have you decided? What is that you are not decided? You said you're not decided. What is that you're not decided? Then Bernard Shaw said, I've not decided who's a greater fool. What do you mean? I've not decided who's a greater fool, who's throwing the ball or the person who's hitting the ball. One person throw the ball, other person hit the ball, and third fellow runs after the ball, brings it, and again he throws the ball, he hits it and bring it. I don't know who's a greater fool. On another occasion, Bernard Shaw and Lord Chesterfield were traveling together in a train. And Bernard Shaw had a very thin and lean figure, fit. And the other man was fat and flabby, nice and fat. And he told Bernard Shaw, because of he's got a very lean figure, he said, what is this figure of yours? What is this feature of yours? So thin and skinny. When we go, the place that we are going, people think that you're coming from a place where there is famine. And Bernard Shaw said, when they will look at you, they will know the cause of the famine. That's how Bernard Shaw's comments. And he spoke about cigarette. He said, cigarette is a little bit of tobacco. Cigarette is a little bit of tobacco wrapped in a piece of paper and fire at one end and a fool at the other end. That's how he defined cigarette. So are you smoking the cigarette or the cigarette is smoking you? I'm only taking a few examples. Different people have got different obsession, different attachment, different possessiveness. You got to examine, what are you possessive about, attached to? Attachment is deadly. Attachment is negative. It's very difficult to distinguish. You got to understand the distinction between attachment and love. When you are attached to a child, you think you are loving your child. It is actually attachment is detrimental to the child. What is the difference between love and attachment? When your affection is polluted with selfishness, it is called attachment. When your affection is polluted with selfishness or expectation, of your fondness to your child is polluted with expectation or selfishness, so that my child should be like this, my child should behave like this. That's what happened. Choosing a career. Before the child is born, the parents decide. First child should be a doctor, second child should be an engineer, third child should be a lawyer. No consideration as to what is the child's personality. They expect that the child should study hard. Every child has his or his ability. Not every child is designed to perform brilliantly in the academics. But the parents, because of their attachment, they expect the child to be A's in everything. It's not possible. See, remember, it's okay for a child to be an artist, maybe a sculptor, maybe a carpenter, maybe a plumber. Why not? But today what happens is, when you're attached, you expect, oh, my child should be a doctor. Why? Doctor, being a doctor is a social status. But the child may not be designed for that. Expectation, that is the result of attachment. You decide what the child should be. Whereas love, true love is, affection with sacrifice, affection without any expectation. You allow the child to be what the child wants to be. When you're attached, you have a lot of expectation. You have expectation to receive. Receive may be affection from the child. The true love is in the spirit of giving. When you're attached, your psychological language will be, I love you because I need you. True love is, I need you because I love you. Attachment says, I am in love. When you're attached, people make the statement, I am in love. Whereas when there is true love, you say, love is in me. Are you in love or love is in you? That makes the difference. Two lovers, you hear that every day. And as a philosopher, you remain helpless, a mute spectator to the tragedy. When they enter in the relationship based on, I'm in love, obsession, possessiveness, relationship fails. Attachment is preferential, whereas love, true love is universal. Attachment, you develop a preferential relationship to a person because that person is catering to your physical, emotional, intellectual need, and such a relationship creates so much of stress and anxiety and suspicion and jealousy, whereas when there is true love, it gives peace, it gives security. You feel secure. When you're attached, you think, what will happen to me if the other person dies? When there is true love, you think, what will happen to that person, regardless of what happens to you? Attachment produces a lot of worries and anxieties because attachment is emotional, whereas true love is rational. Emotional attachment creates anxiety, rational love creates concern. You got to be concerned about your child, your spouse, your loved ones, but not anxiety. But today, what Ramayana is trying to convey is the sense of possessiveness, attachment that many parents go through. You got to introspect. As I told you earlier, the entire Ramayana is a process of introspection. When Rama left Ayodhya because his stepmother, not even his mother, his stepmother Kaikeyi demanded that he should go to the forest. And her son, Bharata, should be the king, which should be coronated as Yuvaraj. And look at the reactions. Look at the reaction in Rama compared to what could have been the reaction. Rama accepted his duty as a son. He accepted his duty as a son to his father. And he respected his father's promise that he made to Kaikeyi. And he absorbed the situation and he risen above the situation. All right. He accepted his duty as a son, respected his father's wish, father's promise and stepmother's wish, absorbed the situation and risen above it. Whereas if he was attached, what would happen? He will fight for the right, like it happens today in politics, in parliaments. We don't have to go to parliaments. Look at institutions and organizations, religious institutions, temples. They argue, oh, it was an unfair election, unfair voting, blah, blah, blah. They fight for their right. Rama could have confronted Kaikeyi that I am the firstborn. It is my right to be the king. Or he could have attacked the authority. That's what happens today. The losing party. Make sure that the ruling party do not rule in peace. They constantly needle. They do everything possible to prevent the ruling party to make decision. You'll find this happening in every country. You can see it happening in South Africa. You can see it happening in India. You can see it happening in America, wherever. Some of the countries may be less, but it definitely happens in some of the democracies like India and South Africa as well. They fight for their rights. They confront the opposition. They attack the authority. They keep needling, and they do not allow the ruling party to rule. The moment they pass a resolution, they pass a bill, the opposition will do everything that is possible, like what is happening in last few months in India. Some of you are following. They passed an agricultural bill. The opposition is doing everything possible, fully knowing well that this bill that is being passed is the best for the country, is the best suitable for the farmers. But the opposition do everything. They do dharna, they do picketing, everything that is possible. That's what happened. Whereas Rama displayed that his duty as a king, as an eldest son, that requires a lot of detachment. Now, detachment, ladies and gentlemen, it is not a weakness, it is an inner strength. The spirit of detachment gives you strength. You know, these outstanding leaders, the caliber of Gandhis and Mandelas and Mother Teresa's and Abraham Lincoln's, and there are so many too, Martin Luther King, they were all living a spirit of detachment. That is why they were such great leaders, because they never had the desire for power. They only had the desire to serve. But today, leaders have the desire for power. They believe that they need a power, they need a position to serve. Truly, people who are really interested in to serve, they don't need a position. They simply serve, regardless of what position they have. Rama was like that. So was Bharata. So Dasharatha was, as I mentioned earlier, was very sad and guilty. You know, sad because Rama's departure, and guilty because of his preferential attachment to Kaikeyi among the three queens. And this is a deadly combination. Sometimes it can be greed and anxiety. Sometimes it can be sadness and guilt, or it can be anxiety and guilt. All these combinations create depression. Today, what we call depression is that. So Dasharatha was depressed and he suffered cardiac arrest and died. Cardiac arrest is not the modern phenomenon. In a modern life, it's cardiac arrest is happening to the people at the age of 20s and even younger. Dasharatha dies in the palace because he couldn't handle it. Why? Attachment. Many of the challenges are because of that. When the entire drama was happening in Ayodhya, Bharata, that is Kaikeyi's son, was not present. He was not in the palace. He was actually very busy preparing for Rama's coronation, because Bharata himself was so happy that his brother is going to be coronated. He never even thought that his mother would ask for a boon like this from Dasharatha, her own consort husband. So Bharata and Shatrughna came back and they heard the news that Rama has left to forest in exile, and his father Dasharatha died of depression and heart attack. And his mother said, you are the king. And what is interesting is he refused to accept the position. He refused to accept the position as a king. No way I will accept it. It is the duty, it is the right of my brother to be the king. As I told you, one of the very important qualifications, I would say the most important qualification that is necessary to be a leader, is not to have the desire to be a leader. The only desire a leader should have is the desire to serve. The moment a leader is fighting for a position, I want to be the president of a temple, I want to be the secretary, I want to be the treasurer, I want to be the deputy president, I want to be, the moment you have a desire for position of power, that will adversely affect your performance as a leader. The most important qualification for a leader is the desire to serve, and then everything else fall into place. And when they have the desire to serve, they never seek the position, they continue to serve. And when they continue serving, people will place him into the position as a leader. That is how leaders are chosen. Today, you find there is, shameless fight, court fight, court battle goes on. Atrocious, terrible. Where? In the religious institutions. Where is serving? Where is leadership? Desire for power is a huge impediment. Bharata and Rama both are qualified to be a leader. They had no desire. They have, of course, had the desire to serve the people of Ayodhya. When Rama left Ayodhya, remember, Rama and Sita was living in the luxuries of the palace of Ayodhya. Overnight, both of them, including Lakshmana, had to leave the palace in the forest, in the dangers of the jungles. Rama did not miss anything. He did not miss the luxuries of the palace. He was so happy in the palace, or he was so happy in the forest, as happy as he was in the palace. Why? Because of no attachment. So what you need to understand is, in life, it is not the possession that is taboo. You can have the possessions, you can have the enjoyment, you can have everything, but it is the possessiveness. It is the attitude of dispossessiveness in your possessions. That is detachment. In the name of detachment, you don't have to give up your luxuries and business and wealth and comfort. No, by all means not. You can have the possession, you can have the enjoyment, you can have the family, you can have the money, you can have everything that the money can bring. But that attitude of dispossessiveness in your possession, when that is, you are not dependent upon those luxuries and possessions for your happiness. You ought not to be dependent upon your child for your happiness. You ought not to be dependent upon the stock market for your happiness. If you are dependent upon the stock market, when the stock market goes up, you're excited. When the stock market goes down, you're down in the dumps. The law is that whatever you are attached to, that very same thing will happen to you. When you are attached to something, whatever happens to that object of attachment or being of attachment will happen to you. When a mother is very attached to the child, when the child's temperature goes up, the mother's anxiety goes up. When the child is happy, the mother is happy. When the child is writing the exam, when the daughter is writing the exam, the whole family is writing the exam. The house is like a funeral house, so much of tension. Why? Because the daughter is going through anxiety, or the son is going through the exam fever. That is the result of attachment. So you can enjoy the luxury, but ought not to be dependent. Something like this. Let me give an analogy to describe what I mean. Once in a particular kingdom, there was, in a particular village rather, in the center of the village, there was a giant tree. And it started raining, torrential flood, terrific rain, and it started flooding. And in the flood, 3/4 of the tree is already submerged in water. All right. A man who was about to be drowned, he just managed to catch hold of branches of this tree. And he secured himself on one of the branches of the tree. And he was precariously sitting there for his safety. On the same tree, on a different branch, there was a bird sitting. Both the man and the bird, both of them were making use of the tree for their safety. The bird, there was wind and water all over, rain, etc. So the bird was perched there. And the man is also sitting. But there's a world of difference between the man sitting on the branch and the bird sitting on the branch. And what is the difference? The difference is this. The man is dependent upon the tree for his safety. The bird is not dependent upon the tree for its safety. If the branch breaks, the man's heart breaks. If the branch breaks, the bird can just fly away. When the bird was swinging in the breeze, the bird was singing merrily, but the man was panting. Why? Because if the branch breaks, he'll be drowned. You live in the world, you enjoy the luxuries and possessions and everything that the world can provide, just the same way as the bird sitting on the branch. Your inner happiness is not dependent upon those possessions, your family, your children, or whatever the children's success or whatever it is. That is when you are detached. That is when you can guide your child. That's where you can enjoy your child. That's when the child enjoys you. That attitude of detachment is one of the essential themes of Bhagavad Gita, so also Mahabharata and Ramayana. When Rama left Ayodhya along with Sita, as a princess of Mithila, Janaka's daughter, married to Rama in the kingdom of Ayodhya, enjoyed the luxuries overnight in the sorrows and I would say dangers of the jungle. She was absolutely calm. Why? Because her focus of attention was always on Rama. Rama represents the supreme reality, Paramatma. As I told you the other day, the word Rama literally, etymologically means Sarvasmin Ramate iti Rama. That which revels in every one of us is Rama. Sarvasmin Ramate. So Rama is the divinity that revels in every one of us. Sita represents the Jivatma, the individual. So long as your focus of attention is always upon God, something higher, you are happy in every environment. That is represented by Sita, being so calm and composed, even when she had to accompany Rama to the forest. As I told you, Bharata did not refuse to accept the kingship. And he decided to go into the forest to bring Rama back to be the king. So Bharata and Shatrughna together with his entire entourage followed them to the forest. So Rama, Sita and Lakshmana were wandering into the mountain called Chitrakuta mountain. All right. And as they were sitting there, they were happy, relaxing. From the hill, they saw Bharata, Shatrughna and the entourage is coming. And when Lakshmana is the one who spotted them. And immediately Lakshmana got worried. Lakshmana did not understand Bharata's intention. It was not Bharata's intention, to seek the kingdom. Lakshmana thought, he assumed that Bharata wanted the kingdom. No, it is the mother Kaikeyi that demanded. So sitting there in the mountain, he saw them coming. And immediately many thoughts, cropped up in his mind. And one of the thoughts was the thought of suspicion that they are coming to attack them in the forest. He assumed, not knowing the reality. Assumption is dangerous. We have a tendency to assume many things that is not true. We act on beliefs, we act on assumption, suspicion. Without confirming the reality, we act upon it. Get into trouble. Get to the root of it before you act upon it, not upon assumption. Isn't it? You know, many things that we see, we assume a bad intention. Supposing you and your colleague is discussing something, all right? Or let's say you walk into an office and two of your colleagues are talking something. And as soon as you walk in, they stop talking. Immediately you assume that they must be talking about you because they stopped talking. They must be gossiping about you. As if you are the only subject for them to talk about. They have 1,001 things in the world to talk about. It's your ego to make you assume that they must be gossiping about me because they stopped talking. A new employee has been selected in your company that you're working. And immediately you start fearing, maybe they're going to fire me. They're going to sack me, dismiss me. Assumption. Somebody is driving on the freeway quite fast. And you project a bad intention upon the driver that he's a maniac. You assume that he's a maniac. How do you know? Maybe he got a bad news that somebody near and dear one met with an accident. So he's rushing to the hospital. Maybe a minute delay, he may not be able to meet the person. How do we know? We don't know. So what do? The moment we see somebody doing something, we immediately project a bad intention. And sometimes we act upon it. And when you act upon it, sometimes the situation can be dangerous. That's exactly what Lakshmana was doing. He assumed that Bharata is coming to fight. That wasn't the case. Bharata was going to invite them, please come back and be the king. You know, assumption. Let me tell you a story. There was a young couple. They were married for many years. They had no children. They had no issues. But they were very happy. They were farming, they're living in the village. So the husband and a wife, they would go into the farm. They're happy, they work together. And they come back in the evening and they enjoy their life, but only thing, they did not have child. So in order to overcome the loneliness of not having the child, they brought a pet. And what pet did they bring? A mongoose. Mongoose. There are many animals that can be domesticated, and mongoose is one of them. I've seen families having mongoose as the pet. So they domesticated the mongoose, and they're very happy. And in the morning, the couple go to the farm. In the evening or in the afternoon, when they come back, the mongoose will come running to greet the couple. So this used to be the custom. And time went by. Finally, they realized that the wife fell pregnant and they were expecting a child. And they were so happy that they're having the child. 9 months went by, they had a cute baby. The whole family was happy. And after many months, after the child was born, of course, it is only the husband that would go into the farm. Wife would stay back, take care of the child. But after a year or so, what happened? The child also the wife also would go into the farm for an hour. On one occasion, it happened that the wife wanted to go to the farm to deliver food, lunch, to her husband. So she put the baby into sleep in the cradle, and the mongoose is at home. So the baby is in the cradle, fast asleep. So the lady would quickly, go to the farm, deliver the food, and make the husband eat and come back. It'll take probably half an hour. So one day, as she went to deliver the food, as she was coming back, and the mongoose would come out of the house and greet the lady. That used to be the custom. And this particular day also happened that the mongoose came running out of the house. But today what happened? Mouthful of blood. Bleeding profuse all over the body. There was full of blood on mongoose. And what did she do? She picked up a big stick, a big rod, and gave a tight whack to the mongoose. And mongoose struggled for a few minutes and died. And she rushed to the house to see the baby. And she saw the baby was fast asleep on the cradle, so peacefully. And below the cradle, there was a cobra, a king cobra, brutally mutilated cobra. Cobra was killed. The mongoose and cobra are inimical, as you know. Mongoose saved the baby by killing the cobra. But because the lady saw the blood in mongoose's mouth, she assumed that the mongoose have attacked the baby and she killed the mongoose. And she came running out and see the dead carcass of the mongoose. This is the impact of assumptions. Do we act on assumptions? Many a times we do. You send an email to somebody, and if you don't get a response, you assume that the person deliberately did not respond. But how do you know? The email may not have reached. Many times can happen. Assumptions are dangerous, suspicions. So Lakshmana assumed a bad intention of Dasharatha, but in actual fact, Dasharatha was so sacrificial, he was coming. So Dasharatha approached Rama and said, there is no way that will be the king. And Rama insisted, you should be the king, you should rule the kingdom, look after the people of Ayodhya. But Bharata said, no way, I'll accept it. And they had a, I must admit, I must confess that what we are doing is only a broad overview of Ramayana. Many episodes is anecdote. I'm not really getting into the dialogue. You must go back to the original Ramayana to read the dialogue, and very, very interesting dialogue between Rama and Lakshmana, and Rama and Bharata. And not only here, many occasions, all right? So a beautiful dialogue ensues between Rama and Bharata. So endearing they were. Bharata insisted that you should come. Rama stuck to his duty, that there is no way I will accept. It is our duty towards the father, that she made a promise to Mother Kaikeyi, and we must respect it. You be the king. And then what happened? Rama refused to yield. So Bharata took the padukas. Padukas are the sandal. All right, sandal there is a particular kind of shoe that sadhus and sannyasis wear. All right, he took the padukas of Rama and placed it on his head, and returned with a sad heart, because Rama and Lakshmana, his dear brothers, are in the forest. And he came back, and he refused to come back to the palace. He refused to accept the kingship. He placed the padukas, the sandals of Rama, on the throne and continued to rule Ayodhya as a proxy, not as a king. He refused to enter the palace. He did not enjoy the luxuries of the palace, because his brother, it is his birthright to be the king, is in the forest. So he refused to accept, but he continued doing his duties, because the country needs somebody as a leader. All right. So the padukas, in Hinduism, as you know, in Hinduism, we revere the feet of gurus and sadhus or elderly people. We prostrate, don't we? We prostrate. So padukas, carrying the padukas, are the highest reverence you can ever pay. Or Bharata, that's the highest reverence that Bharata can pay to Rama. Please give me your sandals. So when we prostrate, Sashtanga Namaskar. Sashtanga means when 8 parts of your body is touching the ground and prostrating to your guru or to the deity or your parents, bowing down to parents. It's a very, very sentimental discipline that every child should practice. Because when you prostrate to the father, it is not just a physical act, it is more spiritual and psychological. When children are taught to prostrate to the father, parents, they automatically develop, right from younger age, they automatically develop a sense of humility. Remember, today's education don't necessarily teach our children the sense of humility. And education and knowledge and skill has to be coupled with a sense of humility, a sense of devotion. Today's many youth who are brilliant academically, they have a sense of arrogance. They have a sense of knowing, I know a lot. And in the process, they forget all the sacrifices that the parents have done, parents have made to educate the children. And the children are qualified from a reputed universities. Parents may not be qualified. They may be from farm, they may be literate, but they forget that the sacrifices that the parents have made to educate the child and say, oh, I'm educated, you are simply from farms. Arrogant. When you train, you might find it awkward to tell your children to prostrate. You don't need to tell the children to prostrate. You prostrate to your parents. When you set an example to prostrate to your parents, you will find the children will do it to you, because whatever you do, the children will do it to you. That's the way it is. Children may not listen to what you're saying, but their mind is like a photographic camera. Their mind is so absorbent. They will pick up everything that you do and they'll practice it. But if you tell them to do it, why should I do it? Question will come, and rightly so. I agree with them when they ask why. But when you show your reverence, if you do not show your respect and reverence to your parents, they will show the same thing to you. That's the way it is. So bowing down to the parents. So when we bow down to the parents or elders or guru, etc., they reciprocate with ashirwad, blessings. Ashirwad means when they bless you, it is backed by what we call a sankalpa. Sankalpa is a pure, unpolluted, uncontaminated thought towards your blessing. So when they give ashirwad, ashirwad is supported with a benevolent thought, and that sankalpa will materialize. That's why in Hindu tradition, when we go for an undertaking, for a venture, or some important meeting or decision that you got to make, we always take blessings of our parents. Why? It is not just a ritual. There is science involved in it. The science is the power of thought, the power of sankalpa. When you give ashirwad. So it is a very important discipline that we need to inculcate in the children. So Bharata was disappointed that Rama refused to come, and Rama stuck to his duty. Rama stuck to his commitment or his conviction that as a Kshatriya, Kshatriya, their words are like a contract. What they say, they will do. Today, you can write a contract, you can have a signature, you can have a witness, you can have everything. Still, people violate, people break that contract, don't they? So that was Rama's caliber, totally detached. And they lived a life of peace and happiness in the palace, in the forest. They were so happy because no attachment. So as they were moving around in the Chitrakuta mountain, eating berries and fruits and roots, etc., what happened to us? There were many demons. They had to face many challenges in the forest, no doubt, of course. But there was an incident. There was a demoness, rather, saw Rama and Lakshmana together with Sita moving around. And the demoness name was Shurpanaka. And who was Shurpanaka? Shurpanaka was Ravana's sister. Shurpanaka saw this young prince, handsome, charming, two princes, along with a charming lady moving around the forest. So when she saw these two princes, Shurpanaka took disguised as a beautiful woman and approached Rama and said, I have been waiting for so many years to meet somebody like you. You're so handsome. You're so good. We are made for each other. I want to get married to you. She proposed. What could have happened to Rama's thoughts? He could have justified and say, after all, my father, Dasharatha, had 3 queens. I didn't run after another woman. She is coming to get married to me. So, but he said, I'm already married. This is my wife. Maybe you can ask Lakshmana. In fact, Rama was being naughty there. You know why? Because Lakshmana had a short temper. He knew that Lakshmana will deal with it. All right. And Shurpanaka was very upset because Rama refused her proposal. And he went up to Lakshmana and said, The same story. You're so handsome, you're so beautiful, you're a hunk, you're beautiful, etc., etc. Praise to the sky. I want to marry you. Please be my husband. Lakshmana also said, I can't. I have a duty to serve my brother and my mother, sister-in-law, Sita. He refused. And then Shurpanakha took her original shape, original form as a Rakshasi. And it didn't take much time for Lakshmana to teach her a lesson. Lakshmana took the sword and chopped off her nose. And she was bleeding profusely, pain, a lot of pain, and she looked ugly, of course. Now the nose is gone. She rushed to Ravana and reported, this is what the two men in the forest did. Chopped off my nose. Look what happened. And that is where Ravana's revenge began. Double revenge. The first revenge was, which was not Rama's fault, even the second one was not. First revenge was when in the palace during Sita Swayamvaram, the wedding of Sita, many kings and princes came, and one was Ravana. He could not lift the bow, and Rama lifted bow effortlessly and strung the bow, which Ravana didn't, because he had the arrogance, he had the power. He knew that he's the best, he's the most powerful, he's the most mighty. That was his belief. So some young man called Rama lifted the bow and strung and won the hands of Sita. He couldn't take it. That was number one. And now his sister Shurpanakha has been hurt badly, and Ravana's revenge aggravated. Remember, ego, the more ego you have, the more revengeful you become. The more vengeance, deadly emotion. By the way, Ravana, most people brand Ravana as negative. Of course he was. But then there was one weakness that overshadowed all the other goodness that Ravana had. Ravana had all the knowledge of Vedas. He learned all the Vedas, the 4 Vedas. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. He worshipped Lord Shiva. Ravana was a beautiful veena player. He was a master artist, amazing veena player. And he knew the Vedas. He was a great warrior. He was a priest. He could perform Havan. He had all the knowledge of medicine. Ayurvedic, those days, of course, the Indian traditional medicine. He was a great doctor, if you want to call it. He had all those virtues. He had such fantastic qualities. He was, valiant. He was a great warrior. But one negative weakness that brought Ravana's downfall was his arrogance and selfishness. Despite all this, so it is not about having the knowledge. You can have all the knowledge of Vedas, but if you do not translate that knowledge into your practical life, it can only make you a lot of ego. It can create a lot of arrogance in you. So whereas when you assimilate the knowledge, reflect upon it and bring it into a practical life, that is when that knowledge brings a transformation. The proficiency of knowledge brings efficiency in action. That information will bring about a transformation of your personality. Otherwise, it remains as information that creates arrogance. That was Ravana. There's an interesting story as to how Ravana got the palace, Lanka. It's a great splendor, material splendor. The story goes, there are different versions of different stories in different Ramayana. Ramayana, by the way, there are different versions of Ramayana. The original Ramayana is the Valmiki Ramayana, which is composed by sage Valmiki, who was a transformed version of Ratnagara, a highway robber transformed into Valmiki. I told you the story. Original Valmiki Ramayana. Then you have Tulasidas Ramayana, which is most popular. Then you have Kamba Ramayana in Tamil. Almost every language, Adhyatma Ramayana in Malayalam, almost every regional language, some authors in ancient times have written their own Ramayana. Not only in India, many Far Eastern countries have their own Ramayana. Ramai Khan in Thailand, in Malaysia, all those, Indonesia, they have their own Ramayana because Hinduism was very prevalent in those parts of India, of the world as well. So one of the versions, one of the stories of Ramayana is how Rama got the palace. So the story goes, Shiva and Parvati. Shiva is the lord of destruction, benevolent destruction. Parvati, they are considered to be the ideal couple among the Hindu pantheon of gods and goddesses. So one evening, let's say one weekend afternoon, Sita and, beg your pardon, Shiva and Parvati were sitting in their, palace in Kailash. And Parvati said, my darling, we're married for so many years. I never ever asked anything from you because you've been so busy. Yeah, Lord Shiva said, of course, you've been so wonderful. You've been so sacrificial. I really, really appreciate that. But I have one desire. What is the desire? Shiva asked. Parvati said, I want a palace. I want a unique palace. Oh, that's all. Don't worry. After many years of wedding, she asked for one. Usually ladies, their most important avenue, their most important space is the house. So she wanted a house. That's all she wanted. She didn't want to sit in the mountain. So immediately, Lord Shiva picked up his mobile phone and called the celestial architect. All right, Vishwakarma. Vishwakarma is the architect of gods. So he called Vishwakarma and fixed up a meeting. He summoned Vishwakarma. Vishwakarma came and he expresses his wife's wish. My wife had a desire to have a palace, a unique palace that should be in an extraordinary space and spot. You must build it. Vishwakarma said, no problem. So he went around the world trying to identify a location. And he identified the location as Lanka, Sri Lanka. And he produced a blueprint, and Shiva and Parvati looked at the blueprint and they made a few changes here and there, as we usually do, and they approved the blueprint. This is a blueprint, you can build it. And Vishwakarma in no time built the beautiful palace that's going to be the house. All right. And Shiva and Parvati went and saw, and it was absolutely beautiful, beautiful palace. And as you know, the Hindu tradition, when you build a house, a palatial house or small house, whatever the size of the house, you do housewarming ceremony. That is, you consecrate, you divinize the house, because that is where you're going to be. And it's a very important ritual. A lot of people don't seem to give importance to that ritual of consecrating or housewarming ceremony. So in order to perform the housewarming ceremony, they want to invite the most knowledgeable, the most talented, the best priest, the best guru at that time. So went through the list who are all available. Now these days, guru, and of course, they need to find the right time also. These days, our priests give the right time when the time they are available. But it wasn't the case. Ravana said, this is the most auspicious time. There's no impediment, etc. They fixed the time to perform the puja. So when they went through the list, they found Ravana. Ravana is the most admired priest at that time. So they requested Ravana to perform the housewarming ceremony. No problem. So when Ravana performed the housewarming ceremony, and the vibration was so good, so positive, the participants, Shiva and Parvati, everybody was so elevated by this performance of Havan. And now time came. One of the important aspect of that Havan is giving the Guru Dakshina to the priest. Guru Dakshina is a part of the ritual. All right. So when you invite a priest to perform the Havan, you usually give the Guru Dakshina. All right. Whether the priest wants it or not, it's a duty, because that's a completion. So now time came, Guru Dakshina. So Shiva asked Ravana, what Guru Dakshina you want? You can ask for it. Because they were so happy with the entire vibration was so positive. What Guru Dakshina that you want? Ravana thought for a moment, and without batting an eyelid, he said, I want this palace as Guru Dakshina. I want this palace. He was so enamored. And without thinking twice, without even consulting his consort, Parvati, Shiva said, okay, have it. That is how Ravana got the palace, that is Lanka. This is one of the versions of the story. That's how Ravana inherited. Now, this part of the story highlights the extreme selfishness and ego of Ravana. Knowing fully well that Shiva would give anything that he asks, knowing fully well this was the dream house of Parvati, yet Ravana asked. That is the extremity of selfishness and ego, and that is what brought Ravana's downfall. So you can have the knowledge, you can have the ability, you can be a musician, you can be the best medical practitioner like Ravana was, but without, if those virtues and abilities and qualifications are coupled with arrogance and selfishness, those abilities becomes a disability. Remember, your ability without humility is a liability. We'll continue tomorrow at the same place, at the same time, with further discussion, the further proceedings, further different story outline of Ramayana tomorrow. Thank you very much. Namaskar. I'll see you tomorrow, same place at the same time.
Food for thought indeed. Thank you, Angajanji. We have been blessed with a galaxy of sages and saints who, and in a way that's apt and relatable to society at present. We have an indebtedness towards these remarkable people whose life's mission is purely to help us grow. If you would like to help pave this way forward so that the dissemination of this knowledge continues beyond just us, then I urge you to show your gratitude to the foundation through a donation. In the description box, you can find the link to pay via PayPal, or you can email info@lifemastery.vision if you require local bank details. Can I also suggest that while you enjoy your evening cup of tea, which I'm sure you are all heading to now, why not browse our website? You will feel like a child in a candy store as you browse the list of books, CDs, and DVDs that are available to help you stay on track with your life goals. From God to Godheads is my personal go-to book, especially when the kids come to me with all their whys, and it makes me feel good that I can offer them a clear and meaningful answer, which often leaves them smiling at the beauty of our teachings. So thank you once again for joining us this evening, and we hope that you will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, as mentioned by Angajanji, for part 4 of the discourse. Hari Om and good night.